Is the airspace above your home actually secure, or is it just an expensive illusion? When NORAD intercepts a violation over New Jersey, it exposes a terrifying erosion of our national borders. We are tracing these incursions to find out if our domestic defense is a shield or just a performance. Thursday, a $250 million movie about a 2,800-year-old poem broke a box office record. Friday, a lettuce recall hit my home state. Saturday, two of the internet's most polarizing brothers got arrested in Miami. Sunday, one single Sunday, Spain beat Argentina for the World Cup. A fighter jets scrambled over New Jersey. Shakira closed out the biggest halftime show in soccer history, and a plane full of people over the Atlantic had to turn around mid flight. And by Monday morning, Marvel had dropped a trailer like nothing had happened at all. That's not 8 stories. That's one weekend that's forgot how to slow down. I'm Mr. O from Minnesota, Palestinian Minnesotan. And I watched every single one of these, so you don't have to. Let's go chronologically because honestly, that's the wildest way to tell it. Let's go. Christopher Nolan's first movie since Oppenheimer dropped last night, Thursday night. And it didn't just open, it demolished the calendar. 17.6 million in Thursday previews alone, the best of the year ahead of Toy Story 5. By the weekend, it had pulled in 257 million global debuts in dollars, the biggest of Nolan's career, a 96 critic score and 96 audience score to match. Matt Damon plays Odysseus, nearly 3 hours long, shot entirely on new IMAX film stock that took a year even to get tickets for. But here's what actually had been the story for months, and it's the one I actually want to sit with. Casting the Nolan cast Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy, Homer's own text calls her white-armed, and the choice set off a genuine firestorm before a single trailer even dropped. Some people are calling it bold, overdue, and what's a 2,800-old myth should do in 2026. Myths get retold. That's the whole tradition. Homer himself was remixing older oral stories. Other people are calling it historically dishonest. A studio checking a box instead of honoring the text. Both of these are real arguments made by people who aren't automatically wrong for making them. Here's why I actually care about this one. As a Palestinian, the question underneath the casting isn't just really about Helen of Troy. It's about who gets to hold the pen of the oldest stories. Who face whose faces get to represent civilization, who's get entirely left out. Who decides what boardroom in Los Angeles? Who decides that? People in Los Angeles. That's not my new question for the people where the family came from. We spent decades watching who would get casted, but I don't think there's one clean answer here. I think it's worth sitting in the discomfort instead of picking a team. Friday night, Taylor Farms pulled every bag of iceberg lettuce sourced from central Mexico off the U.S. shelves. This isn't small. A cyclospora outbreak has sickened over 1,600 people and hospitalized over 94 across the country, and the recall covers 27 states, Michigan included. Taco Bell dropped the supplier entirely. Walmart pulled market-side brands bags. Cisco pulled it from their food service. Here's the detail that should actually bother you for more than the recall itself. The illness in this outbreak started back in May. The recall only covers the product. The product still sitting on the shelves right now. It does nothing for what has already made people sick weeks ago. A recall is a damage control, not an accounting of what happened. And 22 of those 27 states still don't have their own public advisor. Taylor Farms, on the other hand, posted this on its own website before it even hit the FDA's public recall page. That's not a conspiracy, that's just how the slow system moves when people getting sick doesn't have a lobbyist. Saturday afternoon in Miami, U.S. Marshals arrested Andrew and Tristan Tate on a sealed warrant just before Andrew was set to co-host a boxing event. The UK's Crown Prosecution Service has now brought new charges against both brothers: rape, sex trafficking, and offences involving indecent images of a child, tied to four additional alleged victims, on top of four Romanian cases that's been open since 2022. Britain is seeking extradition for the brothers that are due in U.S. federal courts. I want to be precise here because precision matters. When the charges are this serious, these are the charges, not the convictions. Both brothers deny everything. Their attorneys calling this a political hit. A UK judge did just reject their bid to learn their accusers' identities, which tells you a case is moving forward, not stalling out. But moving forward and proven are two different things. I'm not going to blur that line for the views, but what I will say plainly is Andrew Tate built an entire business model on Hustlers University, the whole persona teaching young men that dominance over women is a lifestyle brand. Whatever a courtroom eventually decides about the specific charges, the business models existed and made him rich regardless. Those are two separate conversations, and it's worth not letting the legal question let the cultural one off the hook. And then on Sunday happened. It didn't stop happening for about 6 hours straight. Spain beat Argentina 1-0 in extra time at MetLife Stadium to win their second World Cup in 16 years after their first. Argentina played their entire match without registered a shot on a target. Genuinely expected goals of total of zero point 0.2 against Spain's 1.94. Emiliano Martinez set a World Cup final record with 10 saves keeping his team alive. Argentina went down a man late in the stoppage in time on a second yellow card, and 39 seconds later, in the second half, there was extra time. Ferran Torres, a substitute, buried a winner of Nico Williams' assist, another substitute. Two guys that started the match on the bench decided it. And there was likely Lionel Messi, his last World Cup. He'll be 43 by the next one. He barely touched the ball all match, 15 touches. Lamine Yamal's 26, and his best chance then to run the goal in the fifth minute got snuffled out by Spain's keeper before it even became a moment. If that's how it ends for him, it's a quiet, almost unfair way for one of the greatest careers in sports history to close. Argentina still hasn't repeated its champions since Brazil pulled off its back in 58 and 62. That record's going to sit for at least 4 more years. While that was happening, with Trump, Canadian PM Mark Carney, and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum in all in the building, NORAD F-16s were literally in the sky over New Jersey. More than 10 general aviation aircraft busted the temporary flight restrictions around Bedminster and East Rutherford. Three of them serious enough that fighter jets had to physically intercept flares, all to get their attention and escort them out. Sit with that for a second. During the single most watched sporting event on Earth, with three heads of state under one roof, 10 separate small planes wandered into restricted airspace anyways, not because of some coordinated threat, but just because that's apparently how many pilots don't check the NATOMs before takeoff. The systems work exactly like it's supposed to, but it's genuinely strange when we snapshot how much our security theater around huge events depends on split-second competence from a fighter pilot reacting to someone else's mistake. Same stadium, same day. The first ever FIFA World Cup final halftime show, curated by Coldplay's Chris Martin. Madonna arriving with Ronaldinho and Ronaldo, BTS reworking Dynamite with the football spin, Justin Bieber going acoustic, and Shakira closing it out with Burna Boy and Uganda's Ghetto Kid Dance. Troop performing Die Die, the tournament's official anthem. Same song she opened with the whole tournament with back in Mexico. Worth noting, every artist on that stage was performed for zero pay. This wasn't a Super Bowl style payday. It was pitched as a cultural moment, fundraising tied to the FIFA's global education, and people who showed up for that instead of a check. I'll be honest about this one lands for me. Watching Shakira, a Colombian woman who's carried a Latin identity onto the biggest stages in the world for 2 decades, command that size of in front of global audiences that size, that version of representation I actually want to see. Not a debate about who's allowed to play a role in somebody else's myth. Just someone from a place that doesn't always get centered, stay standing at the actual center of her own terms, singing Spanish to the entire planet. While all that was still being replayed on every feed in the country, an Alaska Airlines 787-9 flight AS-181 Rome to Seattle declared an emergency 2 hours into a transatlantic crossing. Engine vibration. The crew squawked 7700. The Universal, we have a real problem. Code executed a U-turn over the UK, dumped fuel over the Atlantic to get the turn plane light enough to land safely, and turned back for home. Launched after 5.5 hours in the air. No injuries. Passengers described watching the fuel actually streaming from the wing before it touched down. This is one of Alaska's newest routes, their first wide-body service under their own brand after decades of flying narrow-body jets domestically. The aircraft is grounded for inspection. General Electric's involved since it's their engine, and there's no formal investigation announced because this is worth saying plainly. The system worked. A scary read on the flight tracker is not the same as a disaster. Turning back before crossing an ocean is like conservative, correct call. Everyone walked off that plane. And then Monday morning, like the entire weekend had happened, Marvel dropped their first real trailer for Avengers Doomsday, 5 months out from December's release, timed to hit right as tickets went on sale. Robert Downey Jr. returning as Doctor Doom. The X-Men cast: Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, James Marsden as Cyclops, fooled into the main MSU for the first time. Chris Evans back as Stephen Rogers, the Fantastic Four, The Thunderbolts. Basically, every corner of Marvel's last 17 years of colliding in one movie. It's pure spectacle. And it's honestly kind of funny and that it landed in the morning after the actual world spent a weekend proving spectacles doesn't need a script. Real life didn't need a Doctor Doom. It had a World Cup final, fighters jets, and a plane dumping fuel over the Atlantic, back to back. So here's what I actually take from all eight of these, laid out to the end like this. A studio decided who gets to play Helen of Troy. A prosecutor decided which charges to bring against two men who built an empire on disrespecting women. A recall notice decided on how loudly or quietly 1,600 sick people got told the truth. A U.S. attorney's badge got taken back within 54 minutes by a president who decided the judges who gave it out didn't count. And in the middle of all of it, a woman from Barranquilla, Colombia, stood on the biggest stage in the world and decided on her own terms who got centered. And every one of these stories, when you actually line them up, is about the same fight. Who holds the pen? Who gets to write down the myth? The staff, the courtroom, the issue, the recall, the guard, the airspace, and stand in the spotlight. As a Palestinian man, that is the question that abstracts me. That's the question whose story gets told as the main one, and the one who gets treated as a footnote or a threat. This is a weekend. For once, I watched the fight play out in real time across a movie, a courtroom, and a grocery aisle, a cockpit, a football pitch, and in all in about 4 days. That's not a coincidence. That's just what a normal weekend looks like once you stop scrolling past it. 8 stories, one weekend, 17 minutes. Tell me in the comments which one you want to deep dive on. I'll go longer on in this week. I'm Mr. O from Minnesota. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.